And the reason I believe they're pouring capital into the digital control grid is they want to have a complete surveillance and control machinery, both spatial control and financial transaction control, once everybody figures out all the games that have been played with their personal savings. So, there's been a push to centralize control in a way that extracts wealth and plunders wealth in the United States. And that is reaching new heights as people are beginning to push back. Everywhere I go across America, everyone is pushing back. And I can't tell you how many people in the last 8 weeks have said, oh my God, you're right about the digital control grid. And the thing that is inspiring that is now that the flock cameras are going in, now that the robot dogs are helping their sheriff, now that the data AI center is going up next door, and they see that the level of data centers is far more than you need for our cloud and text. Instead, it's for spatial control and financial transaction control. So now people can see it and they're beginning to realize and organize. And you have this race between people who want their constitutional rights respected and a group of people who intend literally to tear the Constitution up. And so this is coming down to fundamentals of, are we going to be free? Or are we going to be, I hate to say it, depopulated, because they don't just want control. I think we're going to end up with serious depopulation.
This is no longer a conspiracy theory. Ron Johnson talked about this in his Senate Senate hearing. He talked about the VAERS having vaccine adverse event reporting system, VAERS. He said they get up 280 vaccine deaths a year, and it went up to 21,000 in 2021. And right. Harvard said it's only 1% of, VAERS only captures 1%, so multiply that by 100. So they had, tens of thousands, if not a couple of million people they murdered off. And so, then what did they do? They kept vaccinating people. So you're on solid ground saying this right. was a depopulation event.
Right. If you look at Ed Dowd's numbers on disability and death, I think he's done it. He and the people he works with on statistics are very, very good. Right. And remember, there's a lot of damage that doesn't get counted as that, because you've got the turbo cancers. Turbo cancer is a big one. We knew they were killing people, and they knew they were killing people.
It was a murder disability program, period, the end, and facts support that.
I think it was more than that. And one of the subscribers sent in a video he sent of a presentation by a Swedish scientist or doctor talking about how they could inject the electronics that they needed in you. Remember, Operation Warp Speed was a military program, and the administration under Trump authorized $18 billion to fund it, and they put in charge of it a gentleman who'd worked at one of the large pharmaceutical companies, and what was his expertise? Brain-machine interface. There is a reason they're trying to get all this crap into your body. This is a real war, and, the time has come to face it and take action. And the good news is, so I can't say enough good things about Senator Ron Johnson. If you look at what he's accomplished over the last, since I first met him a couple years ago, but if you look at all he's done to not only push back, but to push back in a very intelligent and effective way, he's an extraordinary leader, and he's a perfect example of the many people who are standing up and pushing back, in all walks of life, politics, business, government. And the one thing we can all do, because everybody says to me, what can we do? So the number one thing I say is use cash, because we've got to protect our financial freedoms. But the second thing you can do is identify those leaders at your local, state, and federal level and support them. Because something? If you look at how our groups are gathering, and particularly the young people, because the young people have had it, and the uniparty, if you do the polls at 30 and under, the uniparty's over, Greg. They're toast. It's over.
Wow.
They know. I told you when Dennis Kucinich ran for Congress in 2024, his team did a survey of the 25 and under voters. 4 had registered as Democrats, 4% as Democrats, 4% as Republicans, 92% as independent or other. And I'll never forget talking to his campaign chairman. He said, the uniparty's toast. If you look at the voting for Massey in Kentucky, same thing. The uniparty's toast. They've had it with this. So, and they've had it with foreign nationals or people with foreign passports running Washington. Because what is underway right now, Greg, is an effort by the central bankers to take control of fiscal policy. So in 1913, they took control of monetary policy, but they want to use automated software, AI, and I want to explain the third lock system to you. So they want to persuade you that the people's representatives cannot be trusted to run the government, and they, the central bankers, should be able to use distributed ledger technology to do everything, to basically put in automated systems that can implement all fiscal policy through your money and wallets. That's what they want. So there's nothing that serves them better than having everybody get disgusted with the people who are running fiscal policy now. And that's part of the play. Think of it. They're proposing a system where, your representatives don't decide what's going to happen, how your tax money is going to be spent. And then the executive branch, sort of allocate it and do the enforcement. They want it to be done by software code with AI through your money and your wallets. Remember Augustine Carson said, when he said, we can make the rules of how you can use your money and we can enforce them centrally? I'm not interested in that. Let me describe what is happening, and this relates to the data centers and AI. So if you and I do a transaction with cash, that's what I call a two-lock system. You have a lock and I have a lock. You can stop the transaction, I can stop the transaction. The transaction only goes through if you and I both agree to do the transaction. That's a two-lock system. What has happened as the banks have digitized is we've developed something I call a manual third lock. So we have bank secrecy laws, know your customer rules, anti-money laundering laws, sanctions, and various other things that have caused banks to go under a regime where the government or the central bank or various parties can step in and say, no, we want to stop these transactions, or we want to debank this person, or we want to freeze this person's bank account. So suddenly there's this third lock. It's not just you and me. There's this third party coming in, but it operates at a manual level. So if you're the Canadian government and you want to shut down the truckers, you've got to deal with lots of different banks and lots of different people. You've got to satisfy them. You've got to provide them with documentation, on and on and on. It's a very cumbersome system, and it's grown. What the central bankers want to do is do what I call an automatic third lock. So right now, if I want to shut down a lot of different people or accounts, I have to communicate and work with literally thousands of financial institutions and banks in the United States. But if I can put that automated third lock into the software that manages your crypto wallet, or that literally is embedded in the cryptocurrency, which I can do once I get everybody on a distributed ledger. If I can get the financial system, the currency, and the stocks and bonds on distributed ledger, then I can insert a third lock, which is basically a complex algorithm that integrates in with the surveillance system and applies all those central rules. So I can change the rules, and suddenly that automated third lock will apply that new rule to millions of accounts, not only in the United States, but around the world, that are trading in dollars, anything dollar denominated on a distributed ledger. We just saw Secretary Besant say that they had seized the wallets of $1 billion of Iranian crypto, right?
Yeah.
And if you're on a payment stablecoin under the Genius Act, dollar denominated, wherever you are in the world, the U.S. can just seize your wallet, or put rules into the money. So when Augustine Carson says we can make the rules centrally and we can enforce them, they are literally talking about implementing with AI and software in your wallets and in your currency a system that completely overrides all legislative and executive branch powers. Because now we have spatial control right? So our flock cameras are tracking you everywhere you go. Our phones are tracking you, and the cars are tracking you everywhere you go. The Wi-Fi is listening to what you are saying, or your TV is watching what you're doing in your home. And we are collecting all that data and then applying our rule systems back to enforce against you, both in terms of where you can go, in terms of traveling, where you can live, as well as what your transactions can do. If we don't want you eating anything but lab-grown meat, your money won't work to buy real meat, right? So that third lock, and if you look at all the different things that can be embedded in that algorithm, from climate change to fairness and inclusion and you name it, and we call it the virtue veil. All these controls are justified with virtue, right? And being virtuous. And all they are is central control. So that's why it's so important to stop everything that's making that third lock possible. And one thing that really stops it is using cash, because that third lock can only go into effect if we have an all digital financial system. And if we can keep analog alive and keep cash alive, that will help. The other thing is, we are funding the building of all that local infrastructure, directly or indirectly, whether it's the data centers, whether it's the AI, whether it's the telecommunications, whether it's the flock cameras, particularly the flock cameras. We have the power to stop financing it. Most of the audiences I sit in front of, they're pouring their IRAs and 401ks into the stocks that are doing all of this. And the world is full of great companies that are not building panopticons and digital prisons to put us all in, and that's why I'm telling everybody, 50% of your money is going into building all this control stuff. Why are you doing that? What do you do? If you go to Solari, we have a wonderful pamphlet called Coming Clean, and it walks you through all the steps you can take to stop supporting the building of the control grid and to stop supporting the people who are basically destroying America. And you can do it in a way, the key to Coming Clean is to shift your time and your money and your resources in a way that makes you more powerful and your enemy weaker.